everyone, this is Kyle with another episode of the Art of Physical Fitness Show. I've got a killer interview today with Jordan Syatt of SyattFitness.com. Jordan, tell everyone why we should care about what you have to say.
How's it going, guys? It's Jordan Syatt. I'm very glad to be here right now. Honestly, I'm just trying to help. I've interned under I've been really fortunate. I've worked under some great people. I've worked under Eric Cressy, Louis Simmons, really, I'm just here to help. I want to help as much as possible, give some advice, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
It's just advice. But I
So,
want to be able to help as much as possible, and so anything I can do and any input I can give that might positively affect you in your life, that's all I can really hope to do.
killer, killer. So, how long have you been training, and as well as that with coaching, or being a personal trainer?
Well, I'm relatively young. I'm only 21 years old, which a lot of people they get a little bit blown away by that. So realistically, I've been training since I was about 12, 13 years old. Obviously, when I was that young, I was not doing the smartest stuff.
Right.
I remember my first workout at my school. I just went down the line of machines and repeated that 3 times through. But as I got older, by the time I was 17, I had my first personal training job. I was working with some really, really great trainers in the Boston area. I know Stacy Shadler and Kevin McCarthy are some pretty well-known names up here in Boston. Under a guy named Aaron Brooks at Myo Force, and he really was the first one to introduce me to a lot of the postural analyses and all making sure the body's in a great alignment. So I got introduced very young and early to some great training methods. And then I was able to intern I was a client under Martin Berkman for a little bit, and got some great knowledge from working with him. He's clearly a very smart guy, and I learned a lot from him. And then after that, I interned under Louis Simmons at Westside Barbell. I trained there for 3 months, and I competed under him, and I got certified. I'm Westside Barbell certified under him. And then shortly after that, I interned under Eric Cressy and Tony Gentilcore and the guys at Cressy Performance. And I've been officially writing for my website a little over a couple months now. But I've been training people. I remember in high school, I was writing people programs and training. And so obviously my methods continuously change pretty much every single day. I'm learning something new and trying something else different. But more or less my whole life, I've always been training and working with people and trying to help them in any way I can.
So, what shift led you down into powerlifting?
Um, I've probably I'm trying to think. After high school, I took a year off, and I went to Israel for a year, and I just traveled and volunteered. But I was really, really into Pavel Tsatsouline and kettlebell training, and I actually bought a kettlebell when I was away. And I started really getting focused on strength. That was a really important thing to me. I really was focusing on strength and the benefits that come with it. And then by the time I got to college, um, I had been away from a barbell for a year because I was traveling, and I had only focused on kettlebell and bodyweight work. And I
Can't
was
imagine.
it was bad, man. I was really itching for the barbell. So when I got here, I decided, you know what, I want to start powerlifting. So I was working with Martin, and I remember speaking with him about it, and I was like, love the program. Now I'm gonna go powerlifting, and probably a couple days after my program officially ended with Martin, I contacted Westside and jumped full throttle right in the powerlifting world and haven't looked back.
That's awesome. So, for those who don't know, watching the show, who you've mentioned a couple names. Who is Martin Berkman and also Cressy Performance?
Martin is the owner and the writer of LeanGains.com. He is really the leading proponent of intermittent fasting. He was really the first guy that I started to read about and learn from in regard to meal frequency and how it affects or doesn't affect your body in regard to how often you eat throughout the day for whether building muscle, losing fat, whatever it is, he really started to debunk a lot of the myths that I had been brought up with my whole life, which was it was a huge turning point for me in numerous ways. From one, just my knowledge of fitness and nutrition, but two, how I approach research and always being open to new ideas. That really was a very big turning point in my psyche and how I approach things. Eric Cressy is an absolute genius. It's scary, like, to talk to this guy, man. Like, he is so smart. He's a strength and conditioning coach based out of Hudson, Massachusetts, and he's known as the shoulder guy. He's very, very well known training professional baseball players, other athletes as well, but definitely focusing on baseball development from middle school and high school all the way up to the professional level. So I got to work under him and Tony Gentilcore, who are both masters of their craft, like so generous, so smart. In addition, just to the shoulder, they're really whole body specialists. They can look at the body and view it from different ways, just to really start to make sense of things and different movement patterns and how to program based on the individual, as opposed to just giving them a random sheet of paper and saying, all right, go do A, B, C, D, and you're done.
It's awesome. It's incredible for a kid your age. I mean, I'm only 24, but for someone at your age to have been with Cressy and Louie and all that, and being able to get out there and accomplish those things, that's awesome. That your approach, your mindset, your drive, if you will, that's just incredible. So I want to move on into your main thing, be your training philosophies. We're talking about Westside, obviously, but broadly, let's talk about it first, your training philosophy, and then we'll narrow it down and get a little more into the depths.
For myself or for?
Let's start off with yourself, and then we'll get into the for others when you coach people.
Okay, so for me, I having worked with both Westside and Cressy, I try and like join the two into one big mess of awesomeness is what I try and do with it. So the base of my training is based off of Westside's conjugate method. So 2 of the days every week are based on maximal effort training. So what that means is on Monday is a lower body day, and I'll work up to a 1 to 3 repetition maximum in a squat or a deadlift.
Okay.
That's like the main aspect of my Monday, and that's my Monday. And then my Wednesday is I'll work up to a 1 to 3 repetition maximum in a variation of the bench press. So that's like my main base of maximal strength for 2 days of the week. And then on Friday, Friday and Saturday are more geared towards speed work and speed development. So Friday I'll do speed squats and speed deadlifts, and then Saturday I'll do speed bench press. The idea being the combination of maximal effort and dynamic effort, coupled with the accessory work and the repetition method, which come after the main movements, to really optimize strength training and strength development. So that's how I base the majority of my training. But then what I really start to pull from Cressy and that side of things is a lot of the warm-ups and a lot of like the overall health in regard to staying healthy and
right.
staying injury free, because one of the big things is if you're injured, you can't train. That's like a lot of people neglect those really important aspects. So whether it's in regard to my warm-up, or if I'm instead of just standing around and sitting after a big set, I'll do a little bit of extra work here or there just to make sure I have a good range of motion, or I have the right amount of stability or flexibility in certain areas. So drawing from my knowledge from what I've learned at Cressy really complements what I learned from at Westside.
Now, something I've been teaming with, I mean, as far as the conjugate method and rotating lifts and things like that, me personally, maybe it's just an error in application, but me personally, I've actually had a little more success in, I don't know if you know Josh Bryant's work and Chad Wesley Smith's stuff at all, but where they're more about sticking with the main lift and then having your special strength exercises as your accessory work or supplementary work right after your main work. That's where I've had success with. But perhaps, like I said, it's been an application where I haven't seen a benefit in the rotating. Maybe I've gone too far astray from the core principle of the main lift. So, what is your belief on rotating exercises? Do you have a large pool, or do you keep it pretty narrow? How do you approach that?
I just wrote an article on this. I feel like the idea of variation in West Side, a lot of people, they make it so much more complicated than it needs to be. It's extremely, extremely simple and to the point. People are like, I don't know how to make a certain variation of the bench press or a certain variation of the squat or deadlift. And it's as simple as changing the width of your stance. It's as simple as, changing, going from a fat bar to a regular, or using fat grips, or using a 1 board, 2 board, 3 board for a bench press, or low box, medium box, high box for the squat. So it's these variations, they're not crazy like things that are hard to do. They're things that you should be doing in your training anyway. And most people probably do this variation without even realizing it. So in personally, I have a very large pool to choose from, but it's not like I'm planning it weeks and months in ahead. It's really like I set my program up for a 3-week wave, and then when I'm ready the next 3-week wave, I'll be like, oh, what haven't I done in a while, or what specifically works for me? I know that my glutes are a huge limiting factor, so my accessory work is more or less, I always have something that's gonna smash my glutes. I have some specific movements. I know that hyperextensions versus bands, a lot of those variations, they work for me. I know big time that hyperextensions are they need to be in my program. Or pull throughs, especially straight leg pull throughs, are great for me. And belt squats, they're great for me. So it's all about finding the variations that work best for your individual, biomechanics and your individual weaknesses. And that is subject to change over time as well. So it's really about whatever works best for you. So if you're doing work, what you're doing works for you, who's
Right.
to say it's wrong? Who's to say that's not right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I stand on that.
Okay. So outside of the pure carryover to your deadlift, your bench, and your squat, what would you say is your favorite exercise, regardless of all the carryover? Just you love doing it. It's fun as hell to do.
So taking away the squat, bench, and dead.
I mean, it can still be one of those lists, but you're not concerned like the carryover it has. It's fun to do.
Just a fun lift. Oh, that's a good
I mean,
question.
for me, a fun lift is a back squat, but that's besides the point. But yeah.
Yeah. I would have to say I'm a huge fan of good mornings. I love good mornings. I'm trying to think of one specific variation. I love using the SS bar for good mornings, the safety squat bar. It really,
Yeah.
pitches you forward, and that's great because my upper back has always tended to be a weakness for me. So I'll tend to take a wide stance and do some type of a good morning to the pins, and then concentrically explode from that. So that's probably, as of late, is one of my favorite exercises for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's take what we were just talking about and how do you transfer that over to your general coaching clients who aren't powerlifters, who might just be in it for fat loss or performance enhancement, what have you? How do you transfer that over?
So the way I coach, it totally depends on what the client needs, what they enjoy, what they what they have access to. So there's really, my programs they range from looking very similar to a West Side type program to something that looks more or less totally different, like completely 100% flip-flopped.
Now, is all your training done online, or are you a personal trainer in a gym?
I do train some people in person at my university, but most of my clients are online.
Okay.
That's where I get the majority of them. So I'll do a lot of video conferencing and get them to send me videos of their lifts so I can correct form and technique. But let's say for someone for fat loss, let's say I'm working with a 35-year-old, single guy, hard worker, like he doesn't have a lot of time to get to the gym. I'm not going to make him go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. I'm not going to make him, try and do, good mornings or, or lifts that he doesn't know how to do. or things that he doesn't have an interest in learning. So I'll really tailor it to the individual. I always emphasize maximal strength above all else in most, especially like in people who are relative beginners who haven't really had any strength training. Um,
Hmm.
so emphasizing that maximal strength component is extremely important, pretty much regardless of who I'm working with. I mostly deal with fat loss, mass gain, and athletic performance. I'm not dealing with endurance competitors or things along those lines. So maximal strength is a huge component. Um, and then if I'm working with athletic performance, I'll also include a lot of speed work and speed development and sport specific skills. Um, but it really changes based on what their goals are and what they like to do, their how often they can or want to train. And then of course, nutrition is going to be, just as important, if not more important, based on your goal. So it really, there's no one right way or one single way that I program.
So, since you deal with a lot of maximal strength, do you personally and or with your clients, do you believe in the mantra strain to gain, or are you more a submaximal approach to it, but still working heavy, but submaximally approaching and not working to that true maximal effort?
Well, that's actually, one of the things that I love about Westside because it incorporates both. So on maximal effort days, I'll pretty much 3 out of 4 weeks, generally speaking, 3 out of 4 weeks, I'll have someone working up to a true 1 repetition maximum as the first move of the day. If they like really know how to, perform the movement correctly and they're comfortable with their lift, I'll have them work up to a true 1 rep max. Absolutely. Um, Especially if they're a power lifter, because that's as sport specific as it gets. They need that 1 repetition maximum work. Same with an Olympic lifter, someone who needs to lift that weight one time. That's what they have to do in competition, so they have to get used to it. Um, but after that main move, that's when I'll start working with the repetition method, and I'll start incorporating higher repetition work and sub maximal work to get the other training effects that need to come along with the maximal effort work. It's not like one or the other; it's a combination of both.
So, all right, kind of transitioning back to yourself. How do you're competing? You're at 132 weight class. What are some goals that you have in that weight class for achieving?
Well, I would hit some world records. That would be ideal for me. So to date, my best squat, bench, deadlift is a 415-pound squat, 250-pound bench, and a 415-pound deadlift in competition. Um, Ideally, within the next year, I would love to hit like a 430-pound squat, a 285-pound plus bench press, and a 430-pound plus deadlift. But long term, I would really love to set some world records and really make a name for myself.
Awesome. That's what I was about to ask. Is what do you have a long term look out for this? I mean, you're 21, seeing yourself 10 years from now still in the game. I mean, you can't tell 10 years from out, but would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, I can't tell what's gonna happen in a year, never mind 10 years.
Right.
But as of right now, I love the sport. I think the sport is incredible. I love the atmosphere. I love the people. I love the training. So for a long-term goal, I definitely see myself staying in it. I'm sure as I get more and more responsibilities and work and family and things like that, things might be subject to change. But for my goals right now, for my training goals right now, I definitely see myself competing for a long time coming.
Now, that what you were just saying kind of sparked a question in my mind. That what would you say to someone who is watching this who doesn't know much about powerlifting? How would you describe it to them, and that might actually make them change their opinions on it if they had any negative opinions, or just and get them interested in it where um, they might think about competing?
It's funny. I think a lot of people they're very cautious when it comes to powerlifting, and they have a lot of wrong ideas about it. And I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of powerlifters do a good job of making it open. I don't think our lifters are make it a welcoming experience. I think a lot of times what happens in the fitness industry in general is whether it's Olympic lifting, powerlifting, CrossFit, people create these niches and
Hmm.
they get very defensive and they're like, if you're not doing this one, then you're wrong and you're an
Right.
idiot. And in my mind, that's so stupid.
That
That's
just reminds me of stuff that I don't know if you read much about Bruce Lee, but when he talks about his training methods, how he has no not a saying, but that he has no style. His style is no style. Whatever works for the situation. Like I mean, we're both in this industry, and we see people arguing high intensity training or West Side or linear periodization, undulating periodization, what have you. And it comes down to what is the application, what matters to the person that you're dealing with. I mean, sometimes I'll actually, with my athletes, I believe in more of a concurrent or conjugate type of an approach, but occasionally I will throw in high intensity training if it's an athlete who really needs to focus on gaining some muscle. I'll incorporate that in some of our accessory work and supplemental work, styles like that. But go on if I interrupt you.
No, I couldn't agree more. And like I've always been, blown away by how, especially let's say Olympic lifters and power lifters, how there's so much, clashing between the two. It's like so few people in the world are so into training in general that it blows my mind that two groups of people who are so hardcore about training would clash and argue and hate each other just because of the type of training they choose.
Right.
It's like it's beyond me. Like I'll be in a gym and I'll hear, powerlifters or Olympic lifters talking shit about each other, and I'm like, well, why don't you just, talk about your training and just get along regardless? But yeah, I'm getting off topic anyway.
No, I mean, they both can help each other out. I mean, this is all philosophical and everything,
Exactly.
but they can help each other out. And I mean, I don't have much experience in the Olympic lifts, but when I do them, I mean, they're fun to do. I mean, I practice them very lightly with the snatch and stuff like that. And I'm sure my technique is nowhere near what any certified coach would appreciate. But they're fun to do in an aspect, and there is a crossover in some aspect. I mean, any Olympic lifter, I guarantee you, they're squatting to bring up some for like their clean and jerk and things like that. They got to squat to bring up their leg strength, and they can learn something from powerlifters and vice versa.
Exactly, exactly. And in my eyes, what it comes down to is this person's giving everything they've got to their, development and improving themselves. Who am I or who is anyone to say that they're wrong or that what they do is, stupid or anything? Like if they're training for something, like go for it, man. Get what you want and do whatever it takes to get there. Um, but in terms of powerlifting specifically, um, a lot of people see the sport and they just see these massive, dudes who are, intimidating or, whatever, what have you, they're squatting like 1,200 pounds. It's like, it's crazy. It blows my mind. Like, I can't even comprehend putting 1,200 pounds on my back.
Right.
Like, it's stupid. Like, I don't even get it. But a lot of people get intimidated by it. And it couldn't be, if you go to a competition, it couldn't be a more welcoming experience. I mean, I see people competing from, you know, middle school and high school all the way up to 60 and 70 years old, guys and girls, men and women. Like it's an amazing atmosphere. It's really, I can't even express it. And the best part about it is very few people are really trying to say, I'm going to beat this person, or like, I'm going to, do better than him. They're more like, all right, well, what did I get at my last competition? And how can I beat my previous score? And how can I like continue to progress myself? And in the meantime, I'm going to support you. I'm going to spot you. I'm going to, encourage you throughout your lifts, because, we're not competing against each other. We're competing against ourselves. And in my mind, that atmosphere makes for one of the greatest environments in sports you can imagine. And regardless of, whether you're trying to, get huge or whatever you're doing, having these goals and having these competitions are a great way to keep you on track and keep you motivated, and just to, make training more fun in general. A lot of people view it as a task to have to get up and go to the gym, or they're not really motivated to get going anymore. But once you start, you make these groups of friends and these people, and you now all of a sudden you have something to train for, and it's like a great way to see if what you're doing is working. If your training is working, you're going to be making progress from competition to competition.
Right.
Not working, if you're not making progress at competitions, then it's like, okay, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I am focusing on the wrong thing. And there's so many benefits. Like, I can't describe it enough, but don't be intimidated by it is the number one thing I could say. There are so many great people involved in the sport who really just want to help and meet new people and encourage them and help them reach their goals. It's despite the stigma that comes with it of the big scary dudes. A lot of them are like teddy bears, man. Like,
Yeah.
they're nice, dude. Like, I trust them and love them, and I couldn't imagine being with a better group of people.
That's awesome. So, with that said, obviously we deal with a lot of stuff where in our lives and where our recovery isn't always up to par, where our energy levels for the training session always aren't there. So I know Tony Gentlecore talks about it as far as cybernetic training, others call it autoregulation or training to your soul. How do you approach that with yourself and with your clients? Do you have sort of auto regulation, or do you just kind of go after it, head down, charge on whatever you got planned for that day? What do you do for that?
For myself, I'm very auto-regulated. I base it on cybernetic periodization. It's really based on how I feel. If I wake up, because I train in the mornings, so if I wake up and I feel horrible, which really doesn't happen very often. But if I'm not feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
I'll listen to myself, and if it's a max effort day and I really feel like crap, I'm not gonna hit a max effort lift. I'll go in and I'll do the repetition method and I'll train light weights, or maybe I'll just go in and foam roll or whatever it is, or even sometimes it might call for me, you know what, I'm gonna sleep in. Like, it really depends on what I think my body needs. So that's how I handle myself. When I'm working with clients, it's a little bit different, actually, because it's over the internet most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, and it's not like I'm there with them.
Yeah.
So I'll let them know from the outset. I'll say, if you don't feel well, if it's one of those days where you really in your heart you shouldn't be going, then I'd rather you stay home than go and injure yourself.
Right.
So you really have to be smart with that. And it depends on the client, because some clients are going to be all gung-ho and say, hell no, I'm going to train every day hard, 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 hard. And other clients are going to be like, they need that push to get to the gym, even if they're feeling okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that in and of itself makes for differences in how you're going to work with the people. um, but generally speaking, I'll tend to program in down weeks with my clients.
Okay.
um, and it will change based on the program. So, if I'm working with a powerlifter versus if I'm working with someone who just wants to put on some mass, it'll change in how I program the down week. But I tend to put in there regardless, just to make sure, like, even if they're feeling great, I want to program that in there so that they do get that rest and they do, have the time to recover, because a lot of the times they just don't know. They haven't been training long enough, or they don't really understand how to listen to their body to the point where they should say, maybe I should take, this day off, or this day I should go really hard. They don't know how to differentiate between, what works and what doesn't. So I'll put that in there and pre-program it based on what I've seen work in other people and what I've learned, especially from Cressy, with his the art of the deload and things like that.
Yeah. I can completely relate with that. I mean, even now I'm still learning my body. I'm sure for you it's the same thing, where your ego sometimes wants to get in the way of things. But it also comes down to, I think, what I've found for myself is just changing because a lot of times when I go in and I just try and I let my ego get in the way and I don't listen to what my body's saying, and I'll just do what's planned. Put my head down. I'll end up completely bombing out on a lift or something like that, and then that will just crush my psyche for that day and make me question my whole program. And what I've done is basically I've just changed my perception on what a successful workout is. I mean, first I've done, and that's entail has made me better auto-regulate myself to my training, where I'm learning like I can back off. I don't have to push it. I can back off and still have a successful training day if I do this and this.
Yeah.
Do you do you yourself have that problem, that ego problem, or are you are you past that phase now?
Man, I mean, it's tough, dude. Like, it's really tough. It's definitely something I get better at every day. But I feel like everyone who's serious about training has a bit of an ego problem, man. Like, everyone,
Right.
has that issue where they're like, I could do it today, even though I shouldn't.
Right.
But it's something you get better at and you progress with. And the big thing that I have to consistently, remind myself and remind, my clients is after you get to a certain point, progress isn't going to be linear. There
Yeah.
are going to be days where you're just not going to perform as well. It's going to happen. Um, and you have to understand that and listen to yourself and know that, if every day you made progress, you would everyone would love to train, number one,
Right.
and we would have a lot more 1,000-pound squatters. We would have a lot of people, putting up some crazy weight if every single day you were making progress. So knowing that definitely helps me deal with, that ego issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of, it's funny, I don't know if you do it with yourself, with the people you work with, but you're kind of your own guinea pig and you don't even listen to your own advice. With your clients, you're like, you're on top of them, you're sitting here fluctuating things like, no, you're not feeling it, back off today. Let's not do it. I'm not going to do anything that's going to kill you. But with yourself, you'll go and be like, what happens if I blow out a disc or something today? What's the worst that can happen?
It's so true, man. I mean, you're blinded when it comes to your own training, which is why a lot of people they need to have someone else write their programming.
Right.
But it's funny how that happens.
Yeah. So let's shift the focus to nutrition and your views on it. I've read some of your articles. You're debunking the myths of nutrition. So we'll start off there. What are some of the myths that you like to debunk in nutrition that you just think are hogwash that need to get out of people's mind?
Well, we'll start right now with actually one of the things I had to put up with this morning in my nutrition class. My
Oh,
nutrition.
those are always good. College nutrition classes, those are the best.
Oh man, these are top notch. I'll tell you that right now. We were talking about protein, and of course, the teacher. I'm not gonna hate, but the teacher was saying, added protein has no benefits to anyone. There's no reason to eat, above a certain amount for.
Like 50 grams a day, probably.
Yeah, along those guidelines, and she was citing research that said, some people say athletes they get better at using protein, so they actually need less, and so
I can see that they get better at it.
their body
They
becomes more efficient at using protein, so they actually
yeah,
need less to get the desired effect.
right.
And I'm listening as I'm sitting next to some D1 football players, basketball players, and I'm like turning to them, I'm like, don't listen to that, dude. Like, I'm like, dude, don't do that. Um, but so protein is a huge one. A lot of people they talk about how protein is, detrimental to the kidneys. They'll overload your kidneys, or you don't need it, or what have you. Um, in my eyes, it's I don't like to go overboard. Some people are like, you should have, a ton. Other people, have little. I like to stay around 1 gram per pound of body weight, generally speaking. If you're trying to gain weight, I might up that a little bit. If you're trying to lose weight, I would probably most definitely up that a little bit, just to maintain your muscle mass.
Mm.
But some of the most important things I can say is, protein isn't going to one, it's not going to bulk you up. Just protein in general is not going to make you massive. I don't care if you're a guy or girl. Um, it doesn't matter, athlete, non-athlete, whatever. If you eat protein, it doesn't matter if it comes from whey protein shake, a chicken breast, eggs, whatever it is. You're not all of a sudden going to look like Arnold. That's not how it works.
Oh man, I wish.
I know, right?
Uh,
So, like, protein in itself doesn't just bulk you up. Um, Eating a lot of protein isn't going to be, necessarily harmful to your kidneys. It's not. The studies on that are very limited in terms of there have been really nothing showing that added protein is going to be detrimental to your health. And in my eyes, added protein would actually be very helpful for numerous reasons. One, for being able to recover from exercise, being able to build muscle mass. Protein being, showing that it increases satiety and would, in my eyes, maybe be able to you adhere to a diet better in the long term if you can stay fuller longer from a higher protein diet. So all these things put together, it's I see a lot more benefits than negatives from proteins, from having extra protein in your diet. Um, in regard to fats, a lot of people think, if they eat fat, they're going to get fat. That's another, huge myth. It's just not true. Eating fat is not going to make you fat. It's more along the lines of how much you're eating in total that's going to affect your body weight. So more calories than you burn, then you're going to gain weight, and if you're eating less, then you're going to lose weight. Um, Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of a whole foods based diet. Lots of fruits and veggies and lean proteins and high quality fats and unprocessed carbohydrates. But eating fat isn't going to make you fat. That's
Right.
it's like it's I need to get that one out there as much as possible. Um,
And let's get on to just a sidebar. Cholesterol too, and like eggs and stuff. It doesn't correlate to bad cholesterol, LDL or whatever the
No,
heck it
that's
is.
another thing. There's a negative feedback system within your body that, the less cholesterol that you eat, the more your body is going to make, and the more cholesterol that you eat, the less your body is going to make. And most importantly, it's the ratio of HDL to LDL. It's really about, the good versus the bad, types of cholesterol in your body. So making sure that you get it from high quality foods, as opposed to worrying about how much cholesterol you're really eating. I mean, I think one of the guidelines is have about 200 milligrams of cholesterol a day, and if you have two whole eggs, you're already over that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like it's
I'm on the verge of having a heart attack then, if that's the case.
yeah. I love eggs, man.
I just got done right before I got on here with you. I just ate a whole big plate of eggs.
That's what's up, dude. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it should be. Eggs are amazing.
Yeah. So dealing with that, do you do any supplementation at all?
Personally, I do. I I don't know if I should even consider protein a supplement. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
it's just like I use it as a means of, you know,
Fill in the gaps.
it's convenience. Like I'm personally, I'm not going to be able to get, based on my schedule. Like one, I don't want to cook as much protein as I need in a day. Like I don't want to cook that much.
Right.
Like I'm sorry, I don't. So I get an extra 20, 40 grams from just, putting it in a scooper and throwing it down with some water. Great. That's awesome. So I'll use protein. I don't buy the triple XX mass gainer, blah, 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 blahs, like with all these added ingredients. It's either Dimetized Nutrition or Optimum Nutrition Gold Standard. One of those are two of my favorites. And then I also take creatine. I do supplement with creatine.
Just straight monohydrate, or you do a certain
I take
special?
I take creatine monohydrate, the powder version. I'll just take 5 grams a day after I train. Really pretty imprecise with the measurements too. Like I don't have a specific 5 gram scooper. I'll just take like a half a spoonful, and I just assume that's about 5 grams.
Right.
It's not like I'm worried about it too much. It's like
The
measuring it.
science of training
Yeah,
and
it's like, oh,
supplementation.
there's a creatine. Great, done. And then what else? I'm lactose intolerant, unfortunately, so I take a calcium supplement. I love dairy, and being lactose intolerant sucks, but so I need
It's
to get that.
unfortunate for you.
I need to get that calcium supplement in there, and I also supplement with vitamin D. I take about 4,000 IU's a day, because I'm not, especially as it gets colder, I'm not in the sun as much as I should be. So that makes up the majority. That makes up all of my supplements. That's all I take.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm right there. I don't take. Shoot. Do I take anything? Let's see. Yeah, right now I don't take a thing. Occasionally I'll take if I need it to get myself waked a little bit for a session. I'll take caffeine and L-tyrosine mixed together, some capsules of that. But other than that, yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't even take anything. I just get it all through whole food, just meat, potatoes, veggies, all
That's
that
what's
good
up,
stuff.
man. That's you can't like, nothing's better in my opinion. Like nothing's better than Whole Foods ever. And
Right.
like it's cheaper. It
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I used to spend like, I think it was up where a lot myself, especially when I was in college. I was spending like $200 a month on supplements, thinking it was going to make me the next best thing.
it's crazy, man. I know it's crazy. And I remember one time. It's funny like how certain things just jog your memory and you remember something like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
When I think I must have been 14 or 15. I was spending a lot of money. I don't even know. My parents must have just been giving me money, I guess. But I was spending a lot of money on supplements, and I came across a site, and the guy was like talking about how supplements, they're more or less useless and you're wasting a lot of money and all that stuff. And at that point in my career, like my life, I was like, this guy's an idiot. Like, why would they make supplements if they didn't work? And I continued doing it until I got my head out of my ass, and I started looking into the research and trying different things. So, but it's just funny how, like, if you believe in something, you don't want to believe something else. You want to stick with that, and it's really important just to be objective with your thought processes. And if something hasn't been shown to work, like, you might want to try it.
Yeah, and very few stuff has been. I mean, like you're saying, creatine and protein, but again, I don't either consider that much of a supplement. But your basic vitamins and stuff like that. But basic performance supplements, I would probably say creatine's really outside of anything that's synthetic, not synthetic, um, testosterone and steroid and things like that. Outside of that, I mean, creatine, I mean, that's basically the most bang for your buck outside of anything else. Everything else is just a waste of money, I would say.
I agree, man, and it's cheap too. Like, if you're not going for like like, I get the cheapest one. I
Yeah,
get
like
creatine.
Primal Force, it's like $20 or $15, something like
Yeah,
that, for like
like,
2 months worth.
yeah, exactly. It's cheap. Like, don't go for the ethyl esters, or whatever, like
But size on with
whatever.
the gluconate something. They
Yeah, they
attach
all
carbs to it, and
it's like trying to sell you on, get you to spend more money. It's like, go with the cheapest one you can find, just pure creatine. Don't get all the extra stuff added in it, and that's all you need.
right. I want to shift back because I realized we didn't cover it when we were talking about protein and fat. We didn't cover the biggest of them all that everyone loves to talk about is carbs.
Carbies. Oh
Yeah.
man, this is a big one. I love carbohydrates. I'll just say that right now.
Who doesn't?
I love carbs. Again, it comes back to, carbs aren't going to make you fat. Just eating carbs, they're not going to. Again, it comes down to, how much you're eating on a daily basis. Um, Personally, I follow a more of like a carbon fat cycling type thing, where
Hmm.
on my training days I try and keep my fat pretty low, and I'll have a lot of carbs and protein. I really carbs on those days and keep my protein high. And then on my rest days, when I'm not eating as much and I don't need it, I'll reduce my carbs, or sometimes completely eliminate my carbs except from vegetables, and have a lot more fat. So I'll have a lot of nuts and whole eggs, and I eat a ton of salmon. Um, but the most of my carbs come on training days in the forms, whether it's potatoes or oatmeal, brown rice, things like that. Those are my quinoa. All those things are definitely where I get most of my carbohydrates from.
I always wonder how you spell that or say that quinoa. Okay, I got it now.
Yeah,
I was looking in the store. I'm like Quana. I don't know. Whatever.
like so that's a big one that I have to speak with a lot of clients in depth about, is just changing those mindsets. Because some people say fats are bad, other people say carbs are bad, and they have no idea what's right, what's wrong. It's a big learning curve and a long a process that I have to go through with my clients, and that I want to educate them with, so that they can make educated decisions themselves.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, I want to thank you. This was an awesome interview. Killer talking to you. I love talking about strength and all this stuff, and it's good to hear from someone else's opinions on things and answer some of my questions, and hopefully someone else's questions who are watching the show. So we'll just finish up here. You talked about, I mean, it's not a long way off, but you're going to have an ebook on shoulder health coming out, but that's probably, like I said, a long way off.
Yeah, that's a good amount of ways off. I'm writing the book right now, and I'm really happy with how it's coming out. But the more I write, the more I realize that I need to write more and more and more. And then I'm sure through the editing process, I'll have to cut a lot and change a lot. So that's my big project that I'm going on right now. But it probably won't be out for a good bit.
And when are you next competing in powerlifting?
My next competition is actually a month from, I think, tomorrow or something. It's November 17th. I'll be competing in York, PA, under the IPA Federation. I'm in the middle of dieting down to 132 right now. I started a little bit late, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to cut a good amount of water the night before.
Hmm.
But I'm really excited. I run the powerlifting team at my university, and got about a good 6 guys competing alongside me. So it's going to be a really good time for sure.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to ask: is that a bench squat deadlift, or is it bench only, squat only? Is it? Or
It's a full power meet, so it goes squat, bench, deadlift, and you get 3 attempts at each lift. And those are all day events, so it'll be a lot of fun.
well, awesome. Good luck to you on that.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. This was a great interview. I love talking to you and talking about strength and nutrition. So this was a great opportunity Thank you, man.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Again, this is Kyle from the artofphysicalfitnessshow.com. Again, this was Jordan Syatt from Syatt Fitness. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Got your number, the norm. Into your pocket, son. They got you thinking that what you need is what they say.